Hello, everyone. I'm Joel Chasnoff, and thank you for joining us for a very special edition of FIDF Live. Today's episode is dedicated to the heroes of Operation Guardian of the Walls. On May 10th, a barrage of rockets was fired by Hamas and the Islamic Jihad from Gaza to Jerusalem and southern Israel. Israel had no choice but to respond, and thus began Operation Guardian of the Walls, in Hebrew, Mivtza Shomer HaChomot. For 11 days, more than 4,000 missiles were launched from Gaza, aimed at Israeli civilians with one goal: to kill and injure as many as possible. During the operation, the IDF stood guard, protecting Israel and her citizens 24/7. The soldiers of Iron Dome worked around the clock to intercept as many life-threatening rockets as possible. With a 90% success rate, we are all indebted to and grateful for the technology of the Iron Dome and the soldiers who stand behind it. We don't even want to imagine what loss of life could have occurred without the modern-day miracle of Iron Dome. But what was it like for the soldiers of Iron Dome during those 11 days? How was morale within the Iron Dome platoons? To talk about this and more, I am honored to welcome Major Kfir, the Deputy Commander of the 947th Iron Dome Battalion. Major Kfir, thank you for taking the time to be with us after what I imagine was a very intense past 2 weeks.
They were definitely intense.
Can you tell us a little bit about Operation Guardian of the Walls? Specifically, what was it like for you as an Iron Dome Deputy Battalion Commander?
You can imagine we didn't choose to have rockets fired on Jerusalem Day to Jerusalem, our capital, from Gaza. We didn't choose this situation, but it definitely didn't catch us off guard. We've been training for this situation. It was intense. There were a large amount of firing rockets at the same time in different salvos to all our defended areas. But we've been able, because we've been ready and training for this moment, to give the same amount of protection to our citizens and to our special areas that we're defending, of over 90% of successful interceptions.
What are the different jobs in the aerial defense array, and how do they work together in order to make sure the Iron Dome operates effectively?
So there are so many, but as far as we're talking about the systems, the different operational systems, then we're actually dividing between tiers. We have the lower tier, which is Iron Dome. Above it, we have David Sling. And the highest tier, the upper tier, is Arrow and other systems. Combined together, we're able to find the target, understand which weapon system is the one that is best to intercept. In this case of the Guardian of the Walls, of course, it was Iron Dome. But also all the systems are combined and linked to themselves and to other sensors, all connected to Home Front Command, giving the early warning to the citizens in a matter of seconds.
I mean, the technology behind it is really awe-inspiring, and it's also overwhelming to think of how many things need to go right just for any one of these rockets to be effective. I want to ask you, now that you're looking back, what are you most proud of from this operation?
I'm proud of the spirit. I'm proud of the spirit of the soldiers, the women and the men behind the system. The system is not automatic. There are constantly 24/7 officers and combat soldiers sitting inside the main site, inside the Battle Management Center, and making important decisions. It's not easy to see so many rockets fired. Sometimes the people inside, the soldiers, they see rockets fired at their houses, but they have to make the right decision according to policy. And we've done a tremendous job, and I'm very proud of the people.
We are proud of you as well. It was such an intense and an emotional 2 weeks for everyone here in Israel. I want to ask, after 2 weeks of nonstop life and death stress, how do you and your soldiers recharge and get back to full physical and mental readiness?
Well, the first part is that it's not over. We have to remember it's not over. We have to always be ready for the next one, and it could be tonight, it could be 5 minutes from now. And we're most of our day now we're doing debriefs, trying to learn and get ready and develop together everything that we can with the system, with the engineers of the system, to get better and to fix whatever it is that needs to be fixed. Yes, over 90% is great, but we want to always strive to get better and better. And on the other hand, let our soldiers rest a little bit in a cautious way, give them a little bit of time to recharge themselves, if it's at home or in the battery itself. Breathe and get better and get ready for the next one.
Well deserved, I know. Well, thank you, Major Kfir, Toda Rabah, and thank you to your soldiers for tirelessly fighting to keep our families and our country safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your support and for you being our telling our story. Our ambassadors around the world. It's so important to tell the story. And thank you very much.
We're so happy to do it. When lone soldiers join the IDF, they do so out of a love of Israel. They know their service will be difficult. They're aware they will face challenges, especially in a foreign land without the support of their family. But I don't think many of them can truly imagine what it means to take part in a military operation. Captain Rebecca serves in the Artillery Corps as the commander of the IDF's Fire Support Training Unit. She began her service as a lone soldier from Colfax, California, and she has certainly fulfilled her mission of protecting Israel each and every day. I had the privilege of interviewing Rebecca last week while she was out in the field, and I'm very excited that we got to follow up with her today. Captain Rebecca, it's so good to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you too.
So can you share with us a little bit about your job and your responsibilities?
Absolutely. I'm a fire support officer in the IDF. So what I do is I bring everything that the Artillery Corps, the Air Force, and all different kinds of weaponry, everything that we have in the IDF to our maneuvering forces and help them achieve their missions. So it could be artillery, rockets, missiles, pinpoint, precise weaponry, different kinds of air support. And what we do is that we identify different targets in the field, different enemy targets. We plan those targets, we research those targets, and then we call in the strikes when they needed to be called in. And that's how we help the IDF complete their missions.
And what about during Operation Guardian of the Walls? What was your mission then?
So fire support officers during the operation were part of almost every single aspect. We saw a lot of fire support, a lot of air support, a lot of different kinds of strikes and targets. And there are fire support officers and artillery officers who are part of every single part of that. From identifying the targets until we strike them and realizing what happened after, we're the ones who are leading that entire process.
I mean, hearing you describe it, it sounds like an enormous amount of coordination is required. How did you cooperate and coordinate with the various ground forces?
In the IDF, every single kind of ground force, maneuvering force, whether it's the Armored Corps or the Infantry Corps or different battalions in the field, like for example, Nahal, everybody knows Nahal, our Nahal brigade has fire support officers. They have officers who grew up in the Artillery Corps. We train them, and now they're part of those units. They live with them, they sleep with them, they're in the barracks, they eat with them, they train with them. They're there in those units in the maneuvering forces every single day, and they're training with them. And then when an operation happens or some kind of emergency situation, they are there and they're helping to strike those targets that need to be hit during any kinds of situation.
That actually sounds like an incredibly efficient way to get that job done, and I'm sure it was studied and decided to do it that way, but I would imagine it's fairly effective. Now that there's a ceasefire, I got to ask, do you get to take a break, or are you right back into training?
We're right back into training. That's our day-to-day. We're training reserve officers who are called up during the operation. We're training new officers every day. Just this week, we're training over 100 different platoon and company commanders to use fire support. That's our day-to-day, back to normal.
So you're an officer now. You began your service as a lone soldier. How did it feel to take part in this operation? Is there anything you'd like to tell your family back home?
It's incredible to be here right now. I made Aliyah during Operation Protective Edge, and so serving right now in an operation with the Gaza Strip, it kind of reminds me why I came and what I'm doing here. I wake up every day, and I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that I'm a part of the IDF, and that what I do every single day, however small or big it could be, I'm helping the IDF achieve its goals, defending the state of Israel. And so I'd like to say to my parents, my siblings, my friends and family back home that I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm happy, safe, and healthy. I thank you guys for supporting me, and I can't wait to see you guys here in Israel.
Well, the IDF and this country are better for having you as a part of it. I want to thank you, Captain Rebecca. It's always great speaking with you. Hopefully we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
Lehitraot.
Bye.
During Operation Guardian of the Walls, the Israeli Air Force was in the air day and night. Their mission was to strike known terror targets with surgical precision to both ensure Israel's security and to try to avoid the loss of innocent lives at all costs. We are now going to meet Major A. He is an F-16 combat navigator from the Israeli Air Force's 253rd Squadron. Major A lives near Ashdod, and he had to leave his family, including 5 children, at home during this terrifying time to help the Air Force complete its mission. Due to security restrictions, we will not be able to use his full name or see his face. Major A, thank you for joining us. I want to ask, what was your mission in Operation Guardian of the Walls?
In my squadron, we had 2 main missions during the conflict. The first one was air-ground attacks, basically bombing the various Hamas targets. And the second mission was a defense mission, air-to-air intercepts of Hamas UAV launched to Israeli energy facilities, oil rig in the sea. Those were the 2 main missions.
I need to ask you about Hamas. Hamas continues to use their civilians as human shields by operating from civilian areas. Driven by the IDF Code of Ethics, how do you, as a navigator, deal with that?
One of the first things you learn as an IDF soldier, even before you become an officer or a navigator, is the principle of purity of arms, and how we should always take into consideration civilian lives and uninvolved people. As a navigator, I have maximum trust in the operational headquarters, which take care of the whole operational procedure, from planning the targets, taking all the intelligence into consideration, what arms to use in order to make the impact of the bombing smaller. And this comes into consideration in the attacks in the air, when UAVs monitor the targets all along the conflict and looking at the targets before bombing them, and ready for aborting missions until the last second. I can tell you that not once planes aborted their mission and waited for targets to be clear, and in some cases even going back to landing with bombs on the wings.
So sometimes you would actually cut the mission short or return to base with your bombs, so in order that you wouldn't harm civilians on the ground in Gaza.
Definitely.
I do want to ask you about a big news item. You know, it's a lot in the news about phone calls being made to apartment buildings, notifying them that a bomb is on the way. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
This is a mission that is performed by the Shabak. I can tell you that the combination of Air Force and Shabak working together side by side in the operational headquarters give us the result of all these major buildings bombed in the attack were with 0 casualties.
I mentioned earlier you have 5 children. How was it for you, as a father of 5, to take part in this operation, all the while knowing that they were at home in Ashdod, which is one of the areas that was received so much rocket fire?
Yes, well, I must say I've been blessed with 5 fantastic girls. Specific in our house, the mood was good, and there was a feeling of protection since we have a home shelter, and Iron Domes are surrounding Ashdod and intercepting, and we have 45 seconds of alert. So the mood was good.
I want to thank you, Major A, for all you do to keep Israel safe, for all you did over the past 2 weeks, and wishing you and all the best to your family. Mamash toda rabba.
Thank you very much. And if I can add a personal thank you to the FIDF, your impact is felt in reality day to day. So
we appreciate knowing that. It makes us feel good to know that we're doing good work for you. Toda rabba.
Thank you very much.
Operation Guardian of the Walls has made headlines around the world. While the IDF forces are operating on air, land, and sea, the IDF Spokesperson's unit has been on the front lines fighting a different war, the war for truth and an accurate portrayal of what was actually happening during the operation. I'm joined by Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, the IDF's international spokesperson, to answer a few of the most asked questions related to Operation Guardian of the Walls. First of all, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan, it's so good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. As always, it's great to be here.
I want to start with numbers. What can you tell us about the IDF's mission during this operation?
So our mission, primarily to defend Israeli civilians, and as unfortunate and sad it is, unfortunately, there were civilian casualties in Israel. There were 13 Israelis killed by the rocket fire, the indiscriminate rocket fire from Gaza towards Israel. We're talking about the heaviest rocket fire ever from anywhere at Israeli civilians. But I have to say that 90% of the rockets were intercepted successfully by the Iron Dome, which is by far the best system in the world that provides that kind of protection. We're very fortunate to have it.
What unique challenges did the IDF face during this operation?
So the rate of fire is definitely one thing. Massive fire of almost 400 rockets per day over 11 days. The city of Ashkelon had an average of more than 600 rockets per day, almost one every 12 minutes, if my memory serves. So the Iron Dome definitely faced a lot of challenges. And new things was that for the first time, terrorist organizations also tried to dispatch 2 types of vehicles. One, an armored drone or armored drones, what you could call kamikaze drones or killer drones. They tried a few times, more than 5 times, and we intercepted all of them, and none of them reached their targets. They were intercepted in midair by the air defense. And a second thing that Hamas tried to do, another special attack, was a submersible vehicle that Hamas tried to dispatch from the coast in order to strike a maritime target. We were able to stop that as well. So Hamas was really trying to, create one of those special surprise attacks with lots of achievements that they could amplify in the media. And I'm happy to say that against those challenges, we were able to defend effectively.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about Pikud HaOref, what's known as the Home Front Command. Their role was so crucial during this operation. What is the role of IDF's Home Front Command in times like this, and how do they help prepare Israeli civilians?
One of the main jobs of the Home Front Command is to defend and help local councils and all of the other security and medical agencies in Israel to organize the response and the shelters and the services for Israeli civilians in times of emergency. It's a very versatile role. They really deserve lots of praise for their actions. By the way, Home Front Command, they're also the men and women which are dispatched by Israel to go on humanitarian aid missions around the world, saving countless of lives in dozens of missions around the world over the last 20 years.
Why do you think that so much of the world's media gets this story wrong? And one specific angle is just the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization. Why do you think that is?
I think that there are many reasons, but one reason that I think is worthy of special attention is how flat the discussion is, how black and white everything has become, and how little room for complexity and nuance there is, and how many people around the world rely on very quick, shallow information, which wants to put everything in good and bad. If you're strong, developed, technologically advanced, and enjoy military superiority, then according to what many people think, then you must be the wrong side and you must be condemned. But if you're weak and sustain more damage, then you're probably the one that deserves sympathy.
I want to jump to today. The ceasefire is now about a week old. Do you expect the ceasefire to hold?
That's a great question. The Chief of the General Staff has said very clearly that we're not going to tolerate old equations whereby it was, quote unquote, okay for Hamas to fire incendiary balloons or IEDs or to fire rockets at our civilians. And I think we've been very clear about it. And I hope that the message is understood with Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. And they know that we hold them accountable for their actions and for any other terrorist organization inside the Gaza Strip. Hopefully, the international community will put into effect effective mechanisms to make sure that the much needed humanitarian aid that flows into Gaza isn't siphoned and used by Hamas for their military buildup and purposes, which unfortunately is what has happened over the last few years.
I want to thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan, for this amazing conversation. Again, there are hours and hours of things we'd love to ask you. Your knowledge is deep, and you tell the story the way we need it to hear it so that we can really understand it. But for now, I want to thank you for carving out some time for us. Toda rabah.
Thank you very much. As always, my pleasure and my deepest appreciation of what you and the organization does for the State of Israel and for the IDF. Thank you.
Of course. This concludes our special episode of FIDF Live, 7 days after the ceasefire. Thank you to all of the IDF officers who joined us today and shared their experiences during Operation Guardian of the Walls. I would also like to thank all of you at home who so generously supported the IDF soldiers during the past 2 weeks. FIDF received continual urgent requests from the IDF. Because of your generosity, we were able to respond immediately and address crucial needs. Examples include providing critical support packages to the soldiers on the Gaza border and throughout the country. We provided the soldiers of Iron Dome, who are far from any base or IDF facility, a protective area to provide respite from the sun. And we provided soldiers with emergency welfare vehicles, replacing others destroyed by rocket fire. This allowed them to deliver critical supplies that truly made the difference between life and death. Right now, even though a ceasefire is in place, IDF soldiers and their families still need support, especially those who endured extensive financial, physical, and emotional damage. It is imperative that we assist with their recovery. We need to support their resilience and ensure that they return to full readiness to respond to future threats. At the IDF's urgent request, FIDF will partner with them to assist in this crucial rebuilding effort. The two main areas FIDF has been asked to support are: 1, providing financial relief to soldiers in need who were already impacted by COVID and further compounded by the economic distress caused by the operation. And 2, we will help fund recuperation and therapy weeks that will aid soldiers in their economic, physical, and mental recovery. Israel's existence is always under threat. We must ensure that every soldier is prepared to protect Israel and Jews around the world with full strength. Let's all hope for better days. On behalf of everyone at FIDF, I'm Joel Chasnoff. Toda Rabah, and thank you.